PSG fans, this weekend is no joke. We're coming off that horrible, embarrassing defeat in Monaco. Honestly, one of our worst performances of the season. And now we face the hottest team in France right now. Rennes have won their last 4 games. They're full of confidence, and they've got one of Ligue 1's rising stars in defense with Jeremy Jacquet. Yes, PSG had a full week to reset, even 3 days off to recharge mentally, but there's a huge problem. 3 days after Rennes, we travel to Bilbao for a decisive Champions League match. So, how do we rotate? How do we respond? And can PSG show personality after Monaco? Let's break it all down. This game is going to tell us a lot. So PSG Rennes tomorrow, Saturday night in the Parc des Princes. Big game, honestly, and one that, it's like could be a much bigger challenge than what we typically expect. And we do typically expect challenges from this Rennes team, who is actually like one of the team against whom we have the worst record since QSI arrived. They've won against us 8 times since Qatar took over PSG. Which makes it our toughest domestic opponent for some reason. And right now there's a team on form in Ligue 1. They went from a slow start this season, which culminated in October with rumor of Coach Habib Bey getting the boot because they weren't just performing well enough, to now being really like the hot team in France. 4 wins in 4 games. They are back, I think, 5th of Ligue 1 right now. And so very much back in the mix and very much, not only getting the results, because the results are one thing, but also getting some really interesting results. So they won 4-1 at home against Monaco, who we just lost again. They won against Strasbourg. They had a win in Paris FC. They won their last game in Metz in what was admittedly not the best performance that they've had this season, but still getting 3 points in a complicated ground. And so, very much on top of their game right now. It's a team that actually, they're part of the very few teams in Ligue 1 who actually invested this summer and brought in a lot of new players. And so there was this idea that it was just the new players taking some time to click and the team to form together. And now it's in a much better place, and now it's starting to really perform. And it's helmed by, a hot coach, or at least one that, a lot of people are constantly talking about as a tactical mastermind of sorts in Habib Bey, who was an ex-Marseille player, if you want to get your competitive ankles raised a little bit. And he was a consultant on TV, on football channels and on Canal Plus for a long time before coaching. And so he's a public figure. People are used to seeing his analysis on TV. He looked very smart about football, as he should. But obviously, as a coach, it's always very different. But that said, he is a hot commodity right now, and a coach who's he's having some very decent results. He's got a tactical system in place with Rennes of playing 3-5-2 or 5-3-2, depending on where the fullbacks fall. And a very interesting, tactically, it's a very strong team. Physically, there's a lot of density, there's a lot of running. Players really move together well. So they attack as one team and they defend as one team. The fullbacks on the side do a lot of work. They've got a very strong midfield 3 as well. They've got a back 3 that's really starting to click with the hot prospect of the moment in Jeremy Jacquet, who really started shining with Rennes last season and is confirming in the last few games all the goods that people are talking about when it comes to him. And up front, they've got Bril Mbolo, who's ex-Monaco, Esteban Lepau, who just came this summer from Angers. And it's a team that was really built by the coach, for the coach, exactly, and is starting to play exactly as it was envisioned. So a tough opponent, honestly, a tough opponent, and could be a really hard matchup for us, especially since, At the same time, we've got a PSG team who's not at its best right now. Like I said in the intro, we're just fresh off of our loss against Monaco in what was a very disappointing game, both in terms of result, but also in terms of what we showed on the pitch. We have a team and players who are tired beyond tired at this point, and it's really showing in terms of the quality of our game. We do have some players who are coming back from injury, so we might be able to see Dembele actually start the game, which would be interesting. But at the same time, we still also have a lot of players missing. Nuno Mendes not going to be there. Chevalier might be missing this one out, so we might see Safonov. Hakimi is still nowhere close to a return. Doué made his return in training, but I really don't think he's going to be featuring in this game. So we still do have a lot of players missing. And after the game against Monaco, we dropped to the second place in the league. And so we don't want to be dropping more points right now. We want to at least stay in touch with top of the league Lens, and even Marseille, who's just 1 point behind us. And if possible, we'd love to reclaim that top spot and move back to the top of Ligue 1. So anything else than a win is going to look like a counter performance, and it's going to be a tough needle to thread, honestly. So we'll have to see how it's going to work for us. And the last piece of the puzzle as well is that while we had a week to rest between the Monaco game and this Rennes game, we will only have 3 days after to prepare for our next Champions League game in Bilbao against Bilbao, which is going to be the game in the Champions League that could decide if we qualify for the next round. Obviously, in the Champions League, we also want to keep banging in the wins as much as we can to finish as high up in the table as we possibly can. So a big game 3 days later. Yeah, it's are we going to be rotating some positions? Are some players going to be left on the bench to manage their fitness level? It's a very tricky one for a lot of reasons, and honestly, normally I'd feel relatively good about it. And I, to some extent, I still do feel good about it. Obviously, as a PSG fan, we're spoiled. But typically, I would say, look, it's a Rennes team that is going to come to Paris trying to play their game. And typically, that works well for us. We'd rather have an opposition that tries to play their game instead of an opposition that just sits at the back, parks the bus, and tries to defend low for 90 minutes. I don't think that's going to be entirely the case for this game. Of course, I'm expecting Paris to dominate possession and dominate the game and so on. And so I'm expecting this Rennes team to spend a lot of time in defense. But they're not gonna close off completely. I just don't think that's within their style. And that's just not what they do. So it could go either way. It's a very, very hard one to predict. I think in the end, I've got to say, I think if there's one thing about this PSG team and this squad is that they absolutely hate defeat. We know that, we've seen it time and time again, how they manage to summon something to get a draw out of a game at the last minute, how they can climb back and come back at the end of a game. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if this loss against Monaco really stayed with them and really bothered a few of the players. And so with this in mind, I wouldn't be surprised for us to turn up more of a performance against Rennes. And I think this Rennes team, even if it's good, even if it's performing well, even with all the skills that they have and so on, obviously I still think on paper we've got better players. I think that's a given for basically every game that we play domestically anyway. But I think they might. I don't know. I think it might be tricky for them to find the right approach for this PSG game. And if I'm placing myself in the shoes of a Rennes coach or player or whatever, do you go to Parc des Princes trying to play your game, hoping to get a result, knowing that it might, make you more open to counterattacks and to PSG actually doing what they do best? Or do you take your confidence and try to park it in a strong defensive game? it's a tough one. I could see the point where like they might actually like with the four wins in a row, they might be coming in slightly too optimistic and confident, and so try to play their game to an extent that that ends up being to their disfavor. And so is that the case? I think it goes our way. And yeah, I think PSG will be looking to erase that loss against Monaco. They had a full win to rest, a full week to rest, and so a lot of things could be going in our favor. And I really do think in the end, like the best kind of preparation for a Champions League game is to win the domestic game right before. And so really, like realistically, that's what we're gonna be aiming to do. We're at home in our stadium with some players returning like Dembele to fitness. So yeah, like I think it will be tight. I think if I have to give a score prediction, I would say like 2-1 for PSG or 2-0 for PSG actually. Because like for all of the qualities that Rennes has in offense, yeah, like Bril Mbolo and Esteban Lepau, like they're good players on paper, but like they're just not on the same level. And so I do think we've got the quality to see it off like 2-0, clean, efficient, and just like carry on to the Champions League game. So I'll throw it out there, but it's gonna be a really interesting one for sure. And definitely it's gonna be one of the games to watch that's gonna set the tone for the rest and the few games that we have to play until the Christmas break, because we're gonna go from Rennes, like I said, like straight into Bilbao in the Champions League, which is not the hardest Champions League feature you could have, but also like it's Champions League, so it's not gonna be easy. Then we're gonna be playing against Metz, who's towards the bottom of the table, but at their ground it's never a very easy one. Then flying off to Doha for the final of the Intercontinental Cup, and then coming back in Nantes to play against a 50-year team, Vendée, in the Coupe de France. And so we have those 5 games, and it starts with a big one, and we want to set the tone for those games. Start with a win, bring in some confidence, set the run going, and then we'll see what happens in the 4 games after that. So anyway, this is what I had for you on this PSG Rennes game. It's going to be a big one. It's going to be a tight one. Let me know in the comment what you think, how you're approaching this game. Like, what do you expect is going to happen? Do you think it's going to be a strong opposition, this Rennes team? Or do you think we've got this one in the bag and PSG is just going to get a clean win? Give me your predictions. As always fun to see what people think. Drop a like on the video if you've made it this far. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. And don't forget, as always, ici c'est pareil!